Morning, everybody. Welcome to my channel, Donna's Stitch in Time. Today, I thought we'd talk a little bit about tools. Tools of the trade. They don't have to be many, but they do have to be fairly good quality. I'm not going to talk to you about quality as such, but you're going to buy what you can afford. Now, this set of hooks, just the hooks, cost me probably about $30. Now, but look what you've got, and that's a pretty cheap set. But look what you've got: 10 millimeter, 9 millimeter, 8 millimeter, 7 millimeter, 6. A pair of scissors. Obviously, never been used. They're still in their plastic. That's because I use regular scissors. These are a 5.5 millimeter, 5, 4.5, 4, 3.5, 3. And then we get into the little bitty ones. And I'm going to turn it this way so I can read them. 2.5, 2.25, 2, 1.75, 1.5, 1.25, 1 millimeter, 3/4 of a millimeter, 0.75, 0.5 millimeter, which is a 1/2 millimeter. But and you're going to use all of them eventually. Now, other things you're going to need, I use a, it's really a threader. All in the world that does is help you get yarn and thread through a needle hook. So if you've got a needle that's got a smaller eye, but you still need to use it, and you have yarn that's got to go through it, you can use this to help. Let me put that back in here. You're going to need stitch markers. I like the bright colored ones, but I also have some, let me find them. I also bought kitty cat stitch markers. There's a cat stitch marker right there. Black and white, calico. I love my cat stitch markers. I do. I love my cats, period. So, and these open like a claw, almost. If I can get hold of it. The only setback with these is that they can snag into your yarn, whereas these have a tendency not to. Okay? You're going to need a pair of scissors. Sharp ones are preferred. You're also going to need a tape measure, and I don't see my tape measure right now. Well, I thought I had it right here, but apparently not. Anyway, you're going to need a tape measure. Get a small one. You don't need anything very large. Retractable would be best, but you don't have to even do that. Okay? Beyond this, you're going to need this board that I've got here. There's a set of them. These boards, I'm going to take all this off. And show you the other side of the board. Okay, I found my tape measure. You're going to need this tape measure. Now, not this one in particular necessarily. They're cheap as they can be. They're all over Amazon and elsewhere, all over the internet. But it's small, retractable. It's, I think it's 6 feet. Let me look. 60 inches, 5 feet. All right. It measures in the metric system. Can you see that? Let me get over here underneath of the camera properly. It measures in centimeters. It measures in inches. It's retractable. I'm going to let it get down here. See, it just retracts. Don't let it slam. But it's small, it's compact, it's called Love Beyond Measure. I just love this little thing. So, but like I tell you in the video, I'm not sure when I get done splicing if all of it's going to be audible to you. But when I first started, all I had was a ruler. I had a carpenter's ruler, which is the fold-out type, and I also had a carpenter's retractable tape measure. And if you look at my shop on Etsy, that's Donna's Stitch in Time on Etsy, well, you're going to find that some of my doilies, if you look at all the photos, you're going to find some of them have measurements, and it's a yellow measurement. The yellow thing is a metal carpenter's tape measure, because that's all I had. I didn't have this. But it's okay. I mean, it worked. It's not the most attractive thing in the world, but it does show up well on camera. So, okay, you're going to need a tape measure. And this one is, I think, $3 or $4 on Amazon. Okay. This is for blocking. I don't know which way you're going to be able to see that, so I'm going to turn it both ways. Huh, my light just went out. Huh. Well, that's all right. I'll figure it out. But anyway, you're going to use boards like this for blocking. It comes with a pack of T-pins, and you'll lay your work out damp and pin it at the corners, pin it along the sides, pin it in the center, wherever you need to get the pattern just right. And once it dries, it's blocked. It's there. We usually leave damp articles on a blocking board for a couple of days, at least a couple of days. And then you can use a spray starch, or you could put in a spritz bottle of your own a mixture of regular starch and water. My preference is the regular starch and water. I love Faultless spray starch for some things. For something that's very lightweight that doesn't need a lot of crispness to it, Faultless works wonders. But for regular stiffening, like in a doily, then you're going to want to go to the liquid starch mixed with water in your own spray bottle. Okay. Let me put all this away. We're going to talk a little bit about stitch anatomy. And I'm going to use a 5.5 to make my initial chain, but a 5 to work into the back bumps. We're going to talk about back bumps today. So, well, for heaven's sake, come here. That didn't work. I ought to know better. I always do it that way anyhow. It's trying something new on the camera. All right. This is a 5.5 millimeter hook. Remember, we talked about when you're chaining or doing any kind of a stitch, you want it to be consistent. Make sure you can feel, not too hard now, but feel that hook go through that loop, so you get consistent change. It doesn't really matter if your chains are kind of large or very small. They're going to vary according to the size of the hook that you're using anyway. But you want them to be consistent. And the way to get that is to keep proper tension and keep that hook just barely touching those sides. And you can feel it pop through there. We're going to work on some single crochets here. You know, we talked in a prior video about not buying useless things to crochet with. You know, it doesn't cost a lot to get into this. Save your money, buy the yarn instead. All right, this is a 5.5 millimeter hook that I just made these chains with. Now I'm going to switch to a 5. Why am I doing that? If we're going to work in the back bump, you need room to move. And working in the back bump is tough enough without making it harder on yourself by keeping too tight a stitch. So that's why I went to the 5.5 to make the chain and a 5 to make the actual stitch. You can see I'm still struggling with it. There we go. All right, now the next one. I'm going to show you what we're looking at here. Here's the chain. There's the top of the chain. This is the front loop. Here, front loop, back loop. Turn it over. And you see it sticking out the back there? That's the back bump. The reason I'm using the back bump and showing this to you is because I want you to have a pretty good finish on the bottom of your work. I'm going to get several stitches in here, and I'm going to turn it over and show you what I'm talking about. We're going to talk anatomy of a stitch here in a second, too. So let me get this last stitch in, and I'm going to turn it over. It's a pretty good area to look at. Now, there's the bottom. It looks like a regular row of chains, doesn't it? There's the top. Looks exactly the same way. That first one's a bit loose. But this gives you a nice finished bottom, and it facilitates a border so much better. You can get the hook under both of those loops. So if you're going to put a border on something and you know it going into that project, you might want to work your foundation row in the back bump. Give yourself a break. Now I'm going to chain one and skip a stitch. We're going to do a half double, skip. I'm going to do 2 or 3 of those, and then 2 or 3 doubles crochets, maybe a couple of triples. We'll see. Missed a strand of that yarn. There we go. If this is not close enough for you, you know, you can always widen, zoom in. From YouTube has a way for you to zoom in on your videos. And basically it's just pinching the screen out. All right, so there's 3 half doubles. This is going to facilitate us talking about stitch in anatomy here. I'm going to skip a chain one, skip one, and we're going to go into this right here, and we're going to do 3 double crochets. I do like working in the back bump. It's always been really difficult for me to do. And then I heard somebody say, well, use a larger hook to do your foundation chain in. And I'm like, you know what? That actually makes sense. All right, let me get that. All right, that's 3 doubles, chain 1. I'm going to make a couple of triples, and I'm going to make a couple of stacked single crochets, and I'll show you what that means to you in a minute. Didn't do that. There we go. I meant to do that twice. These are triples, not doubles. All right. Now, I'm going to chain 1. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to make, I don't need to wrap over. I'm going to make 2 stacked single crochet side by side. So the way you do that is start with a single crochet, complete it, but keep it pulled up a little bit. Pull up your loop just enough to give you some room to work, and you put that hook right back through the legs of that single crochet, front and back. Can you see that stitch? I'm going to open that up. See, front and back. Yarn over and pull it through. Yarn over and pull it through. So now you've got a single crochet stacked on top of a single crochet. We're going to do it again. And I'm going to tell you why you want to use one of these. It is more uniform, looks more like a double crochet than a, here we go. Put your hook right through. Okay. There. Now, it doesn't look like much there. In the front of a row of double crochet, it looks great. All right, single crochet. Let me get this on. Single crochet, half double crochet, triples, and kind of a mess here. I don't know what happened here. But those are, oh, that's the tail end. These are your stacked singles. Now, let's talk anatomy. I'm going to get a smaller, well, I'll get this darning needle. That'll work perfectly. You have the top loops. I call it the crown of the stitch. And all that is that it's the top. Front facing loop, back facing loop. Do you see that? Front loop, back loop. The two loops together are the top loops of your stitch. All stitches have a post. Single crochets are harder to find than any. But all stitches have a post, and there it is. The two parts of the two strands you see coming down here that are actually in the stitch below, those are legs. So you got the front loop, back loop, and the legs. When you have a single crochet, you have the two top loops that form a V. Can you see that V? Let me open that up just a bit. Can you see that V? You have a front loop, you have the back loop, and that's always relative to you. If you turn this over, what was your back loop now is your front loop, okay? And then what was your back loop is, your front loop is now your back loop. It's always relative to your position with that yarn in front of you. All right, so you've got, and this is the single crochet. Single crochet also has a post. It has two legs. The legs always go through the stitch below. That's how you identify the legs. Didn't know stitches had legs, did you? Well, hang on to your hat. You're not done. This is a half double crochet. We have the top loops, front loop, back loop. We have the post. We have legs that come down here into that next loop, that prior loop from the prior row. We have a back bump. All right, now I'm going to turn this over again. Front loop, back loop, keep turning, back loop. This is the back loop. And that's from a yarn over. It always comes from a yarn over. And this does too. That is a bottom loop on the front. And that's the bottom loop on the back. Did I say back loop a minute ago? It's easy to get the terms confused. Bottom loop, legs. See, they go through that loop below. top loops, front loop, back loop. Why do you think you need all of this? You're going to run into patterns that are going to teach you how to crochet in the front loop, crochet in the back loop, do front and back post crochet, and some exotic stitches will have you coming down here to go through a leg. And I'm going to show you one of those here in just a minute. Now, this is the double crochet. Same thing, just a little more of it. A double crochet is very much like two single crochets stacked on one on top of the other. It's just done in one movement instead of the stacked single that I had a minute ago. Okay, you got your top loops, front and back, front, back. You got your bottom loop in the front, bottom loop in the back. I'll get hold of it in a second. There we are, bottom loop in the back. We have legs. This is a bottom loop as well. And these are legs. Actually, these are the legs. Right here. This is what I call a side loop. And there are exotic stitches that use that too. Okay. Triple crochet. Same thing. We have top loop, front and back loops. We have a bottom loop, front, a bottom loop. I'll get it up here in a minute. Get this one. Back. All right. This one's got more than one set of legs, though. This one's got legs here that you normally expect to find them going into the loop below. Let me pull that up so you can see it. See that? But because this is like stacked crochets, you also got a set of legs right here. See them? Right there. That go into the bottom part of the stitch that you're in. This is a triple. You got the same thing over here. Here's your legs. And here's your legs. Okay? This, I'm going to redo those. They just don't look like stacked single crochets to me. And it may be because they're at the end of a row and they should be at the beginning. All right, we started this with a single crochet. And you go in, take your hook and go in between the legs, front and back. So in between that leg, and go right on past that opening to in between the legs and the back. And pull up a loop and pull it through. Now, does it look like a hot mess? Yeah, kinda. But when you got this at the beginning of a row, it looks more like a double crochet than a chain 3 does. But you still got the same construction. Here's the legs. Let me get this out of the way. Top loops, front and back, bottom loop front, 2 more legs, because here they are going through that stitch. It's 2 more legs right here. And you got the back loop on the bottom back loop, right there. It's all the same stitch anatomy. But this looks more like a double crochet than a chain 3 does. And I'll tell you something else. With the stacked single crochet at the beginning of your row, you won't have that big gap that often forms when you're using a chain 3 and using that as your first double crochet round, because the chain 3, while it's been used for generations upon generations, still never quite made the grade as far as not having gaps around your work. Some people found ways around it by only chaining 2 and then going right back in that stitch to make a double crochet, and that's perfectly fine. Okay. So today we've talked about tools. Just your basic tools. You're not going to need anything really fancy. I don't want to see you going out and buying yarn bowls, swifts, yarn winders, anything like that right now. When you get down the road and your crochet journey has begun to blossom, then you might consider getting into some of that. I still say use a coffee can for your yarn bowl. Always. I don't own a yarn bowl, and I don't need one because I've got my coffee cans. But I do have a yarn winder and a swift. Now, we're not going to talk about those today, but you'll want them down the road, and I'll explain them when we get to that point. Okay, that's all there is for today. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and to give me a thumbs up and share this video. Get my hours watched up, please. Thanks. Bye.